Hello, everyone, and welcome to the first episode of the L-DIH Talks in 2026. I hope you had a good start in this new year, and I wish you all the best ahead. So, sorry. My name is Ivan. I'm support officer at the Luxembourg Digital Innovation Hub. And for today's topic, we have crisis management for the manufacturing sector and Room42. Therefore, we are pleased to welcome our speakers. Welcome Anita Arurajakumar from the Luxembourg House of Cybersecurity. She will briefly introduce us to the cybersecurity-related services of the DIH before we jump into the main topic. Then next we have Benjamin Joly. He will take care of the main topic of today. And just before we begin, I would like to bring your attention to the question tab in the chat. Feel free to drop your question there anytime, and we will address them at the Q&A in the end of this session. So welcome, Anita.
Thank you, Ivan.
To you.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining. I'm Anita Arurajakumar. I work at...
Wait a second. I think there's an echo. I will see. Okay, let's try again.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Ivan. I'm Anita Arurajakumar. I work at NC3 as a cybersecurity consultant. Today, I will briefly present the cybersecurity services we have part of L-DIH project. So for most of you who have already been part of the webinars, you might know what L-DIH is. Our services are usually split across aware, assess, fund, test, and train. So in the assess part, we have many assessments, including the light cybersecurity assessment and deep security assessment. So LHC, we are divided into two departments. One is Circle and the other is NC3. NC3, we are responsible for competence and capacity building in Luxembourg. We also publish market intelligence and do research and innovation. Circle is for the incident response and cyber threat intelligence. So in case if you ever have a situation where you have an incident, you can always reach out to circle.lu. So part of this project, we have two services. One is light cybersecurity assessment, and the second is called Cyber Value Pack. Now in the light cybersecurity assessment, it's an online assessment. It contains 28 questions. Once you answer these questions, you get a brief overview of the vulnerabilities that you have. And it also comes along with recommendations that you can directly implement. In case you need any clarifications or assistance on the recommendation given, you could reach out to us. Part of the Cyber Value Pack, we have two services. The first one is about awareness and training for the entire team. And the second service is called Room42. It's a 4-hour cyber attack simulation for the C-suite and the team. So today I will have my colleague Benjamin who will present more on this. So over to Benjamin now. Thank you.
Yes, hello everyone. Thank you, Anita, for the introduction. That was really nice of you. And so yes, I'm more here to talk to you about the Room42 and the crisis management today. So just a short part of me. I'm Benjamin Joly, and I am an exercise director, which basically for me is doing Room42 all day. So I can talk to you about it, and the crisis management also, since the Room42, which we talked about earlier, is a simulator in cyber crisis. I will not talk about only cyber crisis. I will go more over crisis in general, but the idea is more also afterwards to talk about cyber crisis with the Room42. So like said, the idea of today's presentation is to talk about crisis management. But basically, what are crises? What are incidents? You might probably have heard this word before. And this is a really important one on that. But if we try to think about basically crisis and also their impact furtherward, basically we will see that there are a lot of things to talk about. So first, let's review and see basically incident and crisis. How do they work together and how basically it will happen? Then we will see key component of the crisis. Afterwards, I would go through the specificities of the manufacturing sector, since this is the main topic of today. Then I will give you 10 steps which are really global, which are really general, and which we oftenly give during a training in Room42. So basically, the idea is for you to have a small handbook that you can go with and basically try to see how you would handle crisis. And then I will tell you, what you should already have prepared, basically, for before any crisis. And then we will talk about the Room42 itself. So first, incident and crisis. So basically, incident, this is just something that will disrupt all operations and which is oftenly local and manageable. Okay, so if you take a car, for instance, because this is quite easy, everyone has a car. So if you take a car, if you have, I don't know, a weird noise in your motor, for instance, that will be an incident, okay? If there is no orange light, if there is nothing happening. What you might think about is that, would you continue to drive if you hear this weird noise, or would you just stop and check what happened? Basically, if you wouldn't stop and check, probably what will happen if you continue to drive for, I don't know, 100, 200 kilometers, then your car might have a bigger problem, okay? The problem might continue to get more and more worrisome until everything breaks, okay? This becomes a crisis situation. And here, there is something which is strong that you need to understand, is that the incident will lead you to a crisis, okay? The idea is that an incident can grow worrisome and worrisome and worrisome if you do not take care of it. And sometimes there are also a cascade of different incidents that will happen to be a crisis afterwards. The idea is that basically a crisis escalates over time, okay? So basically, it will not be something that will happen like that, okay? Quite often, even if my car example was something that will happen like that, but most of the crises are more silent, are more discreet, okay? This is some event that will show you immediately that you are into a crisis. There are some signs that do not, that basically will show you that you are into a crisis. So the idea of all of that is, how do you spot a crisis? Okay, this is a good question. And how would you spot crisis? The idea is to do an impact analysis of all the incidents that happened. Okay, so there are multiple ways to handle and to do an impact analysis. Basically, the idea of an impact analysis is analyze the impact of an incident. Take any incident in mind, okay? Something that can happen to your infrastructure, okay? Something simple. Take it and ask you some question. Is it something worrisome for my reputation? Is it something worrisome for the operation? Is it something worrisome for the safety of everyone? Is it something worrisome for my finance? Is it something worrisome for any legal pursuit? Is it something worrisome in the environmental case? This is a whole question that you need to ask yourselves. Of course, these are examples of questions. Sometimes you might not ask yourself the question of environment. basically, also, you might not have yourself to ask the question about your reputation, because you know that this will not attain the public attention, and so on and so forth. So basically, all these impacts that I gave you are just examples, and you need to find the one that you are really attached to. And this is something really important for that. And this is also part of the preparation. So I will come back to it afterwards, but this is the idea of basically, and what you need to understand to retain from that is an incident will transform itself over a crisis if you do not take care of it. And you can basically see when a crisis comes by doing an impact analysis. So just to get more into maybe examples, okay, or things like that, I can think about the Minamata disease that you might have heard. So it was in Japan. It was a bit long time ago. Okay, this is an old example, but basically, when you think about it, you can think of the fact that basically a company, Japanese company, released some chemicals into nature. The chemical was based of mercury. I will not enter into too much detail. I'm not a chemist, by the way. I do not know that much, but mercury poisoning is something really real. And as they gave the mercury compound into the nature, then people get sick by it, okay, mercury poisoning. And this event, okay, this incident happened once, twice, thrice, and so on and so forth. And afterwards, people became ill, basically, because they consumed a lot of water that was polluted. That's why it can happen. And in your domain, basically, because when we think about a bank, we don't think about, I don't know, explosion during your safety or chemical hazards or so on. Why for your sector, this is something that you might have to think and you might have to be aware of. So that's why it's so much important for you to already think about it, already take care about it, okay? Basically, there are some key components of a crisis. Basically, you need to define first what we call a crisis cell. So crisis cell, this is some people that will get together and try to resolve the crisis. We will see afterwards which role should be in there, but basically you will need to define roles in them. So there are some people that will already have their roles, but you need to define and assign new roles. New roles that you will need to define everything in it. So this is a bit weird, said like that, but you will see afterwards, and I will give you during the 10th step part, I will tell you more about this because this is really an interesting part of the crisis and something that we often see in the Room42 as a failure. So if you basically want to succeed your crisis, this is something that you definitely should have into account. But basically, one other key point of the crisis, after defining the roles and the crisis cell, this is the communication part. And also, this is something that we see oftenly as a failure. So communication should happen in the crisis cell, even in the crisis team, okay? You should work together, you should communicate together. This is something that might be stupid. You say, okay, you think I'm dumb or something like that. No, that's not what I mean by that. But this is something that is really hard to think during a crisis, okay? And I need to remind you the basis of that. When you are into a crisis mode, you probably don't think straight because you are panicking, because you have other things in mind. So talk about everything during crisis, telling people that, hey, I have a problem. Can someone help me on that? Or, hey, we have this new element on the crisis. We should act on it. This is things that you should take care of. Of course, there is inside the crisis communication, but there is outside the crisis. You need to think to warn people that are not into the crisis team, okay? Could be people that are working for you. They do not know that crisis happened yet, but you need to warn them, maybe for their safety, maybe also for them to give the right level of information outside, because you might not want everyone to know everything inside your inner crisis, if you know what I mean. So basically, this is also something that you will need to take in account. And of course, so I said employee, but there is also the management that should be aware of. And by telling the management, it's everyone, the management basically should be aware of what is happening and how is it impactful for you. There is also the supplier that probably will need to be warned about, the authorities, because sometimes the crises go far and beyond, the media, because the media will definitely try to get information from you, so you should be prepared to deal with them. And also your customers, because they will be impacted by the crisis in itself. So all of this will be part of your communication strategy. And we often see in the Room42 at least 2 or 3 of this category of people that are not warned. Okay? We will go more further on that when I talk about Room42, but oftenly it's quite hard to follow that you have warned everyone. And quite oftenly it's more of a, okay, who should I warn? Wait, I have to tell this person, I have to tell this person, but wait, this person has already called me, and it goes every way around. And why is that? Because you are panicking. And I will go through this more and more, because in a crisis, we are panicking. Last but not least, the communication should be clear. It should be consistent. It should be fast. Okay? This is 3 property of the communication that should always be thought about. Okay? There are more properties that are quite interesting in communication, but here, what it means is that you should be clear to everyone. Okay? Whenever you are talking to someone, anyone, you need to adapt yourself to their level of communication. Do they know this vocabulary? Do they not know this vocabulary? You need to be understood by a 4-year-old if you tell him something about crisis, okay? This is my rule of thumb, let's say, but basically you need to be understood by everyone. And in order to do that, you will need to communicate clearly what's happening, okay? Because if you start using some abbreviation, okay, of your daily life or vocabulary that you have not defined first, then it might be a trouble. Of course, communication should be also consistent, meaning that you should not say something, then say this opposite, okay? And of course, the communication should be fast. In time of crisis, you need to be fast in communication if you want to succeed. Because if you do not give all details as you should, for instance, for a CERT, if we are talking about an information security problem, information security crisis, if you talk to a CERT, then you should be ensured that basically they have all the information to give you all the solution that you can have. Basically, what is specific on the manufacturing sector? And here you have a bit more to think than most of the people, that most of the companies, because a lot of companies which the work happened in the office, basically, let's think of the banks or any other. I do not bully the banks, okay? I just take them as example because this is an easy environment that everyone can think about. But basically, if you think about the work in the manufacturing, then you will need to think about people and their safety, because there are some big risks that are at stake. The people's lives are at stake, and you need to take care of that. You need to take account of that. Basically, it's staying for the machine and the technology that you have, because the machine, the technology can be quite fragile. You can have equipment that take long to repair. This is something that you need to think about. I'm quite sure you are all aware of that, but this is something that you will need to think during the crisis. And also the production flow, because manufacturing sector is often quite dependent on what is before and what is after the incident part. So this is something that you should have in mind, okay? Because any disruption is a disruption everywhere. Basically, what I mean by that is that the speed and precision are crucial, okay? The more you have speed, the better it is. The more you have precision, better it is. You need to train, and train is a big word. You need to train yourself. You need to train to handle crisis. You need to train to prepare to have a crisis, and so on and so forth. You need to train the communication. I take a simple example in the Room42 part, okay? We have quite oftenly an hacker which is calling into the room, okay? So we take the phone and we play the hacker role. So we say, hello, this is the Black Friday. We have hacked you this morning, and so on and so forth during the exercise. What is interesting is that I'm quite sure no one, and nearly no one, have ever talked to someone which is threatening you on the phone, okay? This is quite rare to have that kind of interaction. How would you react? And this is a true question that I'm asking you here. How would you react whenever there is this kind of person that come to you, threaten you? This is something that you should have never thought about. And now that I ask you this question, probably you think about it. You're asking yourself, wait, how am I reacting to that? Should I ask the police directly? Should I do this? Should I do that? And so on and so forth. Basically, this is the good reflex to have, is you need to ask yourself these questions. You need to think about all this worst case scenario that there is, and then you need to have them in mind, okay? And this is something that is really also important for the crisis management here. Basically, and this is also an important part, is that the more that you think about the worst case scenarios, the best will be your handling of a crisis, because the more prepared you will be and the less mistake that you will do afterwards. Quite easy as that. I'm sorry, this is the message that I keep repeating, but basically this is what you have to do and how can you handle a crisis in real life, basically. So now, just to give you an idea, this is what we tend to use as a presentation at the end of the Room42. So after giving them the taste of crisis, so this is basically information security crisis, but here, this is what we are telling them. What are the main steps that you will need to do? And the first step that you need to take care of is to keep calm. And this might be the most important step that you can always do into this kind of event. Whenever there is a crisis, keep calm, okay? When I'm saying keep calm, you probably will say, okay, it's easy, but how? How would we keep calm whenever there are life at risk, whenever there are danger, strong danger, and so on and so forth? And this is quite hard to do, to be honest. There are some techniques to help you relax a bit. I can think of breathing techniques, okay, that can maybe help you. And this is things that you should always take the time to do. Of course, there might be also some other priorities, but taking the time to breathe in, breathe out, you take 5 seconds, 5-second breathe in, and 5-second breathe out. And you will see that you will feel way more calm, way more, less more stress, should I say, less stressed. That's the idea behind it, okay? You will find yourself way more comfortable, and then you can tackle everything, because we know that the decisions that you take way too quickly will be bad decisions. The second step is oftenly to assemble the crisis cell, okay? Like I told you earlier, you need to have crisis cell which should be ready. And the crisis cell, this is a minimal composition that we tend to give to people. So basically to have a decision maker, someone who can take the decisions in case of need, someone who has a clear view on the impacts. Basically, we talk about a risk or a business specialist, someone who has an idea of what will happen if everything goes wrong. Then someone who can apply those decisions, these measures, or this solution that you think about. That would be what we use in for information security crisis. That would be the CISO or the IT expert. For you, it might not be the case. It might be other people. Okay. Again, this is some basics ones. While, by the way, it tends to become more and more IT related. So you might also have an IT expert in that table. And then you have also the communication specialist, someone who is able to communicate internally and externally, okay? Could be also different person, but the idea is that this is a minimal composition. You need to have someone which can take the decision, someone who can see what can be the good and the bad behind these decisions and this crisis, someone who can apply everything, and someone who can communicate about it. If you have this 4 person at least, then you are already in a good position, because you have take all the talents that are needed to resolve crisis. Also, what I can suggest you to do, and what I always tell people to do, is to keep and prepare a timeline of all the events, okay? This serves as an evidence, but the timeline is something that you might think quite nebulous to construct. Timeline of the event should always have the name of an event, a time of an event, a person which is either responsible or have seen the most, and then a description of the event. This is what are the categories: the what, the when, the who, the what. Okay, what is basically the name that you give to this event. The when is when this event happened. Who is who has seen this event, who have done this event, and so on and so forth. And the last what is a description of what happened. And by what happened, it should be always, like I said earlier, something clear, something fast, and something consistent. Okay? It should always be something which can be understood by everyone on the same level of the crisis. So again, this is not the place to take some abbreviation or some short text. No, it should be something which is clear, which everyone that read this line understand this line. And also I take reference. So sometimes to have just a reference, a number of reference, for instance, incident 1, incident 2, incident 3, that helps to talk it more faster. So that's why we tend to put a reference before it. And basically, this is how you would construct a timeline. Of course, one idea, one good idea, would be to have a board, a whiteboard to do that. Why a whiteboard? Because you can erase things that are not good. You can basically write things, rewrite things if they are wrong, if they are no good anymore, if the situation has changed. So this is why we tend to suggest to do it on a whiteboard, because this is something that can help, but can be also done on a computer or so on. This is up to you to see. But this is a good way to do a timeline. The third step is to prepare the impact analysis. So the impact analysis, of course, you have a lot of impacts. We have already talked about them a bit, but basically you have the reputational impact. So basically, who is aware, is it the press, the client, the employee, and so on. The operational impact, basically which system, which data are targeted. You have the legal impact. Can you have some legal repercussion to that? The financial impact, basically the payments that you have to do, you will have to do, you will have to pay, you will have to repay some equipments and so on and so forth. And you have other impacts such as personal impact, is threaten someone, anyone, environmental impact, is it threaten the environment in itself, the water that the people drink in, and so on, so forth. The idea behind it is to have a tab where you can put the impact in itself. And what would be the impact in an impact analysis? During crisis, it's quite hard to define that, okay, the impact of this one will be 100,000 euros. Okay, it's not possible to do it quickly and fastly like that. So basically, we tend to advise to the people to use a scale which is from 0 to 5. Something really simple. So basically, a scale which the 0 means there is nothing, no problem at all, and the 5, which is something that is harmful, that can be the end of the company, basically. And from the scale, we can always say, okay, it's a 1, it's a 2, it's a 3, and so on. And basically, you will ask yourself the questions like that. My incident, how is affecting my reputation? Is it 0, nothing happened? Is it 5, something which is the dead of the company because no one will ever trust us anymore? Or is it a 3 which is we will have some badly injured reputation, but something that we can recover from? And this is up to you to see. Same thing, operational. Operational, a 0 would be, okay, there is no problem on my production line. Nothing happened. The 5 would be, okay, everything is stopped. The whole company is stopped. We cannot produce anything anymore. And we know that it will take 1, 2, or 3 months to repair everything. And a 3 would be something like, okay, we had some problem, but I think in 2 days, we can be up to the task to get going. This is, of course, some examples, and it will depend, of course, of the company in itself. But this is things that you will need to take into account. So after you have defined your scale, you need to basically define when there is a crisis. So in this example, okay, if I have, I don't know, 3 impacts that I need to analyze: reputation, operational, and legal one. And let's say I have a 3, 3, 3. I will take the basic math, okay, and I will do just an addition of all of them. So 3 plus 3 plus 3, which equals 9. And then I take the half, so basically is 7.5. If it's more than 7.5, it's probably a crisis. So here, if we have 3, 3, 3, then yes, this is a crisis. And this is an easy way to define yourself. Okay, this is a crisis, this is not a crisis. Again, the idea is not to take too long to define everything, okay? The idea is more to be something fast, but something also realistic. By the way, I just remembered that I forgot a bit of information just before, which is definitely, I talk about the roles that you have, but I didn't talk about defining your roles. I told you earlier, if you remember, I talked about the fact that you will probably need to define your roles. This is where it happened. Basically, on this step, you also need to define your roles. And by your roles, you will need, and if you remember well, when I talked about the timeline, you will need someone to write this timeline. So you will need a new role, which will be kind of a secretary of a crisis, which will write everything on the board and which will go through each and every member of the crisis cell, asking them, okay, have you a new detail to add on this event? Is something happened or not? And basically, and that's why I get back to that, it's the same for the impact analysis. You will need people to define also the risk analysis part. You will need also to have people that will define all the impacts. You should not get all together on the same place, deciding things while your phone rings with important information. And by the way, this is something that we see in the Room42 quite oftenly. We can see oftenly people that just do not take care about the phone calls. It's not my problem. Let's discuss about the crisis, while the crisis still continue for them. The next part is to contact the experts. So here in the Room42, that would be the CERT, okay, because this is information security crisis. But basically, this is where you contact the experts, someone who can help you with that. And basically, the CERT is kind of the firefighters, but for informatics, for IT. And then you will have to describe your timeline. You will have to give them all the elements of your timeline because they will know what happened and they know where to act. For instance, if you just say, okay, I have a fire in my line, this is not the same to say that I have some chemicals that took fire, because this is not the same. And if you say the name of the chemicals, maybe it's not water that you should bring. Maybe this is also a way to get rid of the fire. Okay, so they will need to have all the details to know what should they do. And this is really important to contact them. You will see it afterwards. A lot of people do not think to ask about experts. And basically, this is a problem that we have often in IT, is that we have a lot of people that want to resolve the situation by themselves. And this is sometimes just to be someone nice or to be the hero, or sometimes just because they are ashamed to have this kind of event, so they do not want to share them. And this is things that you should also take into account and explain to the people that there is no shame, it's not something nice to try to resolve things and not communicate about it. Of course, you can try to resolve it, but you should be at first careful about it. The next one is now to take the first decisions, and basically, depending on what you have already chosen, what you have already selected, you need to define everything that you will do. So basically, you have the first countermeasure. Basically, is it basically how would you do to repair the things? And I will go through the first countermeasure afterwards, but the idea is to apply them, start to think about them and then try to apply them. Then you need maybe to activate a BCP or DRP. So BCP, Business Continuity Plan, DRP, Disaster Recovery Plan. This is basically all the plan that you have already prepared that you might try to launch, basically. There is also the communication that should be handled at this point, and communication should be internal, should be external. There is also the legal action that you should take care of. Basically, do you need to call the police? Do you need to call the firefighters? Do you need to call the CNPD? So on and so forth. Well, the firefighters was the last step, but the police, the CNPD, all of the organisms that you need to contact them. And then, of course, and this is also something that is nearly always forgotten in the Room42, acquire evidence. We all have with us smartphones that you can use in order to take photos, to take videos of things that is happening. It's not a bad thing to take evidence like that of an incident happening. I'm not talking about sharing them on the social media to say, hey, look, we have a new fire. No, this is more of a keep evidence. Always have something to tell that you were there, you were not there, you write that, you did not write that. It's always a good thing to have. And also it will help with the insurance. The continuation is now to apply all the urgent measure that was decided in the last step. So basically, the urgent measure and the workaround that you will have to take should be applied in an order which is quite precise. The first one is to stop the propagation of the crisis. Could also to ensure that the safety of everyone is done. These two ones are quite basically quite in the same level, but oftenly, and I use this one when I talk about this, you need to think about whenever you have a pipe leaking at home. Okay, this is an easy way to define a crisis also. Basically, whenever there is a pipe leaking at home, the first reflex that you should have is shut down the water, then shut down the electricity. Then you can try to sponge everything, every water that has happened, and then you can take care of the pipe in itself. Okay? This is the same in a crisis. Stop the propagation of the crisis, meaning shut down the water, ensure the safety of everyone, stopping the electricity, repair all damage that are done, sponging the water, and then check and repair the root cause of the incident, repair the pipe. Okay, this is quite easy to do, but these steps are important. And you should never, and I said never, start by repairing the pipe. Okay, if you try to repair the pipe, everything will go wrong because you still have leaking water, you have danger with the electricity, and you have the water that keep leaking out and leaking out. The seventh step is more about a long run because crisis, and this is something that we did not talk about, but crisis tends oftenly to be something really long. Okay, if I told to you about COVID-19 crisis, that was a long one. If you think about what's happening in Ukraine, this is a long one, and so on and so forth. A crisis is oftenly something which is really long. Okay, so you might have a dedicated room, you might have phones, a way to ensure communication, a secure network, secure computers, if this is an IT problem, okay? And then you should have also a logbook, a whiteboard, or anything to write the timeline and the impact analysis. Of course, one thing to think about also is the logistics behind it, meaning the coffee, the water, the food, even the beds if it's necessary. But all of this will help your team to deal with it. And if your team is dealing with it good, then the crisis will resolve by the time. The continuation is now to handle the crisis on a day-to-day basis, managing the crisis. And the first thing is that to be able to take the right decisions, you will need to be aware of everything. You will need to be definitely aware of all the events that happen and understanding what are the impacts of all the events and all the solutions. Then it's time now to identify the more permanent countermeasure. So we are into the last step, trying to resolve the root cause. Also trying to implement any response plan, and you need also to think about the cost, the benefit, the priority, and the impact of them. Activate BCPDRP, we already talked about it. Deploy the communication plan, inform clients, stakeholders, employees, partners, authorities, public. Everyone should be contacted with the good level of information. Okay, this is really important also. And finally, you will need to manage the relation with all the third party. Could be CERT, could be experts, could be authorities, and so on, so forth. Then the ninth step is about how did I get out of the crisis? How do I get out of the crisis? And this is maybe the most difficult step during the crisis, because what you basically need to think about is that, is my countermeasure was implemented? Was it tested? Was it measured? So implemented meaning that they are there, tested meaning that they are in place and working, and measured meaning that they are efficient, that they are doing what they should do. Is your business basically same as usual or not? And when I'm talking about business as usual, this is important to think that this is about the start of the crisis. This is before it. Because if you think about the COVID-19 part where we were, basically we went at one time as a business as usual because it took time. So basically we had the time to adapt ourselves, and business as usual changed. But it's not because you are into a mode of business as usual that you are really into business as usual. This is an important thing to have in mind. And then, of course, the communication to all parties are managed and satisfactory, meaning that you have handled every communication and the communication was the right level of information was given to everyone that should have it. And finally, the last one is the lesson learned. Basically, you should take into account everything that happened. You should enhance all the process that might have caused everything went wrong. So basically take into account the costs that are direct, indirect, tangible, intangible, and so on and so forth. Basically, you need to take everything into account. Really understand what happened. This is important to get to the root cause of the event, because if you do not understand it, then it might lead to the next crisis. Why this machine stopped working? Why this machine does that? Maybe if you haven't already found it, you will need to get to the root cause to find what happened really. Because the machine that did not work is maybe an employee that did not know how to handle it properly. And then you might need to do a training. And this is something to avoid the next crisis, which is this machine do not work anymore. Of course, you need also to improve all the system and the processes to enhance all your further protection. And with that, I've completely finished the 10 steps that are essential for crisis. Basically, now, what should you already have prepared? And you have, for that, the communication template. So I talked about a lot of communication. You need to communicate with everyone and so on and so forth. This is already something that you can already prepare. Preparing internal message, preparing customer message, preparing press statement. Like I said to Room42 not so long ago, if you have already a template which says hello or dear Mr. and at the end, thank you very much, have a nice day, or something like that, okay, which is already prepared. This is something that you will not have to think during the crisis. This 1 or 2 seconds can change everything. As you might know, we have a lot of basically what I mean by that is we tend to everything can change in 2 seconds. That's what I mean. Sorry, I was lost myself a bit. But yeah, this is the idea behind it, is that 2 seconds can change everything. So be aware of even the simplest thing can already help you. And the more you will have prepared, the best would be for you. The contact list also. Whenever, and ask yourself the question, okay? Ask yourself, if tomorrow my house burned, who should I contact? Do you have this in mind? If you don't, then ask yourself this question, because whenever you will be panicking because your house is burning, you won't think about, okay, I need to contact this one, I need to contact this person, I need to contact this person. No, you won't think about it. You might think about, okay, I need to call the firefighters, but that's all. And you will not think about, oh, I need to call my insurance, or oh, I need to contact this person, and so on and so forth. This is why it's so important. Also, train and exercise. I will not underline it enough, or highlight it enough. But you need to train. And basically, this is why each year we are doing an evacuation exercise on any offices. It's because whenever there is a fire, we need to be prepared. This is the same. Okay, you might find it ridiculous when we are doing the fire exercise, but this is for the safety of the people. And this is the same for every kind of crisis that happen. You need to train yourself on this. And of course, having some backup plans. Already prepare everything. The business continuity plan, disaster recovery plan, alternative supplier, manual procedure. This is all things that you will need to think about before. The more you are prepared, the less you will panic, the less you will have to do, the more time you win, and the less the crisis will start. Basically, that's it. Now, so just behind me, as you might see, okay, you might have asked yourself, why am I in the dark? Okay, why this room is completely black behind me? So I am here into the room 42. And that's why you might think that was weird. So basically, you can see two screens behind me, okay? And these two screens are basically what we are seeing as an exercise director. So this is where the magic happened for us. And basically, as you can see, so we can hear and see the people that are just there. And we basically do the exercise while seeing the people. Sometimes we have some observer that sit just near me. And basically, we are trying to simulate a crisis as much as we can in order to show them how to proceed. Now, to get back to the slide, we have some different statistics on the Room 42. So as you can see, we have found, and I will only highlight the red one since I'm maybe short on time on that, but basically, as you can see, we have 41% of the participants that reacted in more than 15 minutes receiving a crypto ransomware. So you might not know what is a crypto ransomware, but basically this is just a pop-up that tells you that you need to pay X Bitcoins in order to get back your data, because your data are locked. And basically we have 41% of the participants that do not communicate about it in more than 15 minutes, or that that do not communicate it fast enough, basically. So basically, this is something that you need to take into account. This is something that you should know, that you should communicate about it. Social engineering, it's the same. This one is quite important because we have 13% of the participants that given the password to someone they didn't know. There's just someone on the phone that they didn't know they gave their passwords. We have also 59 of the participants that do not know how to act with an hacker on the phone. This is what I told you earlier, okay? And basically, the 59% is because we are quite generous on that, okay? But we have 59% of the participants that do not know how to act. And also, and this one is also really important, the 22% that do not ask help from experts. Sometimes something might not be on your part of expertise. So this is something that you should take into account. And I guess that's all for me for this presentation. So I hope you basically have fun on this one. And now I guess it's time for answering your questions.
Thank you very much, Benjamin, for this really insightful presentation. And thank you for sharing these safety measures. It's really important for every company to have this. And yes, I have no questions. Unfortunately, no questions in the question tab and no question in the normal chat. So I think we can move on. I will quickly take back my presentation. Yes, the presentation will be shared after this webinar. Latest on Monday morning, you should have the presentation in your mailbox if you were registered to this webinar. By scanning this QR code, you will land on our event page where you can follow up with all our past webinars, but also our future webinars. You can sign up for the next one. The next one is on on funding from the SNCE. So a really interesting webinar to sign up for. Thank you very much, Benjamin, and thank you very much, Anita. I hope we will see you again for future webinars. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I think I have indeed another webinar in February
All right.
about the general awareness, if you ever wonder.
Okay, so in February you will have the general awareness of cybersecurity webinar with Benjamin and Anita as well. Thank you for joining and hope to see you in the next webinar. Stay tuned. Bye.
Thank you very much. Have a nice day. Bye.